Hi everyone, I'm Crow77, and today we're taking a look at the concept of Sotogawa. Now, what is Sotogawa? Literally translated, it means outward or outside, and it refers to a tile that is towards the outside of a tile that's already discarded. That is the terminal side of it. This lays a good bit of foundation for future discard reading, and it's more reliable than a lot of other techniques. It requires paying a lot of attention to other people's discards, though, and can really only work for tiles discarded pretty early in the game. Also important are whether or not tiles are tadashi, which means you're discarding tiles from within your hand, or sumogiri, discarding the tiles that you drew. We'll get into that a little bit later. So the most important thing is understanding when discards are in order. Now, when I say discarding in order, what exactly does that mean? Let's say we start cutting tiles out of our hand. Don't worry about the specific hand too much yet, but it might look something like this discard pool you see here. I would consider this to be in order. In general, players are going to discard from the outside in, starting with terminals and honors and working their way towards the center. After that, they discard the worst shapes in their hand. That's how you can see the 7-5 kanjan come out and the pair of fours as well. This is the tendency that we're targeting with Sotogawa, and it's how we're going to identify what tiles are safer. Let's say this is our opponent's discard pool, and they just declared a Riichi on turn 7. Using what we just learned in the last slide, we can see the discards are in order until we hit the Tumon. One way to read this is that the tiles were isolated until they hit that Tumon. There must have been some kind of reason to discard it later than the 4 so, even though it doesn't make sense from an efficiency perspective in a vacuum. Because of that, we can't apply Sotogawa to it. It's too likely that it came from a shape like 2-2-3 or 1-1-2. But with the discards that are in order, we can get some information from them. Since we're assuming that the 4 or so and the 2 pin came from isolated shapes, anything outside should be safer than tiles that aren't. So that would mean that the 1 pin and the 2-3 so are much safer than other random tiles that someone might discard. And it would be a good option for defense if we don't have any of the others, which is pretty likely with a discard this early. With this, like with other tools such as Suji, the earlier the tile is discarded, generally, the more reliable it is as well. So let's take a look at this hand. Now you can see that some of the tiles are grayed out. Those tiles are sumogiri. So when we have a tile that's sumogiried, it means that it wasn't considered as far as the order of the discards go. So this south wind, for example, tells us nothing. It's not like they were holding on to a south wind and chose to discard it later. It's just something they took off the top of the deck and then discarded. So using that information, take a look at this hand, kind of try to figure out what would be safe, what wouldn't. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time. All right, let's take a look at the hand. So here we can see, as far as the discards go, the honors were just normal discards. The 2 was actually cut from a shape that was a 4 or 5 at the time, since the 2 is a little bit redundant. The 8 was discarded as the 6, 7, 8 was completed, and the 3 was discarded when the 6 was picked up to improve the shape. From there, nothing else really happened that was too important. We can see a couple sumogiri tiles. The 7 was probably on the other side of the 4-5 there, and the 4-mon was actually close to the 2-mon when the pair was isolated in the 2-mon. So overall, the discards make a lot of sense, and the safer ones in this position would be the 1 of bamboo, the 1-mon, and the 1-2 pin. So in general, discard reading only works when the player's decisions truly make sense. Now, what that means is you shouldn't try to use this technique when playing against very new players, and it's actually less effective against very experienced players too. Very experienced players like pros will actually try to make discards to confuse people, to try to trap them, really at the loss of not too much efficiency. One common example of this is, say I have 2-2-3 in my hand. I could discard an early 2, assuming that Ryeonmin shape, that 1-4 weight, will come out pretty soon no matter what, and I don't necessarily need that extra pair. Now remember, Sotogawa works best against the earliest discards in the game. But any other way you can identify that a tile was isolated is also important. One thing I've talked about quite a bit is table reading and learning body language and even what people say at the table if you're not in a tournament. So sometimes you can use that sort of thing to figure out that a tile was isolated, even if it was a sumo giri or something like that. So take a look at it, try it out, and try to get a feel for how safe or dangerous it is in different situations. It'll definitely take you a long way towards improving your game. That's all I have, so thanks for watching. As always, if you need anything or have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at the different things listed here. I'll see you guys next time.